Welcome, fellow human beings, to Addiction Abuse Recovery Podcast. I'm Matt Logan, founder of Matt Logan Speaks. What we try to do at Matt Logan Speaks is just bring you positivity. It's kind of a positivity channel. And one of the ways that we do that, we want to just highlight and celebrate people's recovery on this podcast. Recovery from abuse, recovery from addiction. So please help me welcome your host, Sherry Irvin.
With me today, I have special guest star Harmony Sage. Harmony is a single mom of 2 teenage children, a boy and a girl. Harmony is employed with Cardinal of Minnesota, which specializes in the care of developmentally disabled. Harmony is getting ready to start a video vlog for women to empower other women. She is also going to be starting a written blog on WordPress to get out all of her rants and raves. Looking forward to that. But what you don't know about Harmony is that Harmony has fought her way back from a drug addiction from crystal meth, and she is also a survivor of domestic violence. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you, Harmony Sage. Welcome, Harmony. It's so great to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm super flattered. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. What I have done, I did a little bit of research on some of the topics that we're going to be talking about, and I was absolutely stunned by the statistics and the numbers that came up. And we all know that with drug addiction or any addiction at all, trauma usually is one of the lead. It's the leader. It's what gets us to do what we do to numb the pain,
Correct.
Whatever we need to do. So when I was looking at the statistics for domestic violence, I was absolutely blown away by it. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 10 men have been a victim of domestic violence within their lifetime. According to the CDC, just in 2019 alone, there were 10 million people that have been have fallen prey to it, whether it would be stalking, whether it would be manipulation, whether it would be the actual altercation in itself. So I would be honored if you could kind of tell us how you came from your depths to your heights.
Right.
And who are your heroes? Who pulled you out of what was happening, the spiral that you were going through? And who saw you as that human to tell you that, enough is enough. I need to get out of this situation. If you could share a little bit of that with us.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I guess the best place I always think to start is from the beginning. Oftentimes, when I'm getting to know somebody, I really, especially if I'm super intrigued by them and they have these personality quirks or whatever, I want to know, where did they come from? What was their childhood like? So, for me, I was born in San Diego, California, to be super blunt, to an alcoholic father who was in the Navy. My mother was raised and born in Kansas, southern Kansas, country girl, super sheltered, sort of the black sheep of the family, unfortunately dealt with a lot of abuse herself, sexual abuse to be specific, from the ages of 13 to 15. So much that, what she dealt with is that she decided to get out of that, and she hitchhiked to California. And, lo and behold, she's young. She goes into a naval bar and meets my dad. So I come from that. And I start with my story with that because right away you see that, you have an alcoholic father. You got a mom who was sheltered and abused. And I think it's kind of important to sort of know where you come from, whether it's good or bad. And that's taken a lot of years to accept that, especially because my father wasn't involved in our lives. We moved around a lot. Shortly after I was born, we moved to North Carolina, where my father is from. My brother was born, whom I'm very close to. And, my father's alcoholism just got worse. And, I always give my mom credit for noticing it and trying so hard to keep us all together, because I truly believe that was the love of her life. But honestly, my grandparents, my fathers, basically asked us to leave. They bought us plane tickets and said, you can't do this anymore. And I believe that was partly, there's some enabling there, but also, sort of knowing what's best. And so we went back to Kansas, and moved around a lot, Iowa, Indiana. Definitely my childhood was poverty. Didn't have a lot of money. She's a single mom, codependent. Oftentimes she was with, every few years a different guy. So with that came sometimes witnessing abuse, whether it was verbal, physical. Myself, unfortunately, at the age of 5, living in Indiana, Mom just happened to go to the grocery store, and neighbor boy lived down below, must have been about 17 or 18, and just unfortunately had, been a victim of sexual, child abuse. I was molested. And, looking back at that, it's just so interesting because I really do get where you hear a lot of victim statements thinking, God, what did I do? I did something wrong. I was 5 years old, and it took me to be an adult to realize I didn't do anything wrong. That was completely on him. And so, of course, I repressed it, never told my mother. Actually, the interesting to go forward with that is I told my mom about 5-6 years ago about that incident, and I kept it from her on purpose because even at a young age, I knew that there was nothing she could have done about it, and I would have only given her guilt and heartache by telling her about it. So I spared her that pain. I find that interesting, to be a 5-year-old and to have those feelings and emotions already established. So when I told her, it was a really big deal. I just felt, even though I knew those same feelings were going to come up for her. I felt that, as an adult now, and I just really felt that she needed to know. That's really all it was. And of course the guilt was there and she felt terrible. And it was just more of like, maybe this kind of explains, what I've been going through, just partly. And, and just moving forward, again, the constant moving, not because, again, my dad was in the Navy. Most people often thought, oh, your dad was in the military. No, we just moved a lot. And finally, at the age of 12, we moved to Minnesota, Rochester, Minnesota. My mom had a long-term boyfriend by the name of John. He oftentimes gets brought up when I talk about things because weirdly he was significant. I would have not ended up in Rochester, Minnesota if it wasn't for him. I didn't have the best experience with John, my mom's boyfriend. He was very verbally abusive. He was addicted to marijuana and who knows what else that I was unaware of. He actually had this this thing. He liked to pawn things. So oftentimes we didn't have very much as kids because whether it was the television or the VCR, which is funny to say now, or even my bike would get pawned so he could buy his drugs. He grew it in the closet, and so that was kind of my true first experience with drugs, and being around me, and I still remember the feeling of this day of being super embarrassed by it. Just thinking, God, this is so freaking embarrassing, and knowing that society deems it illegal. So I think that had a lot to do with it. I actually, even at that age, and I'm talking about 12 and up, knew that it made him better, weirdly. He wasn't as angry. He wasn't as irritable. But still was embarrassed. There was a couple of instances, and I know my elementary, junior high school friends probably will laugh at this, but before I would have any friends come over, I would always just tell them. I would be like, hey, can you just wait outside? I just want to make sure it's okay if you come in and we can hang out. It was never that. I had actually a pretty cool mom. It was always that I was worried that our apartment would smell like marijuana smoke, or John would be in his cut-off denim jeans wearing no underwear. I mean, it sounds really funny, but he just had these like weird things about him. And but again, even though I went through all that weirdness, it still, it got me to this point of that. And then moving forward, I couldn't wait to leave the nest. I couldn't wait to run away. And so after high school, 2 weeks after graduating, I moved to New York, and I became a live-in nanny. And I worked for an Orthodox Jewish family, and that went really well for the most part. Learned about different religions, cultures, Sabbath, Saturdays, not handling money, not dealing with electricity. super odd and weird for me. Totally like, wow. But they had a pool. I'm 19 and I'm like, this is cool, and I'm like, I'm in New York. And then just one day I decided, as you meet a lot of nannies when you're out there from different places. And I met a nanny, Wendy, from Washington, and we decided we were going to sign up for karate class in New Jersey. But you had to drive there. And I felt so guilty because the car I was provided as a nanny, they made it very clear that I could only drive it really within the city, not too many more towns over. It just wasn't meant for that. And weirdly, even to this day, I think, God, I kind of got shafted. I'm like, here's some of these nannies driving BMWs and stuff like that, and I got this. But Wendy tended to be the driver when we did things. And I'm like, you know what? I'll drive tonight. And she's like, are you sure? Knowing what I'm doing. Like, I shouldn't be driving that far. But I did, and of course, karma caught up with me, and it was a rainy fall day, and it was slippery, and I was going around a curve, and the car went in the ditch. And holy crap, obviously I'm in trouble now. Now I have to explain what I was doing, why I'm where I'm at. Needless to say, I didn't stay at that job too long. I just I end up lying, trying to like cover my tracks of when I should have just told the truth. And from that, I end up getting a new family. I was really on the brinks of moving back to Rochester, and I didn't want to, because to me that was like, failure. I've only been out here 4 months. And so I met another family. They welcomed me into their home. They were from England, but it was a Scottish family. So that was like super cool, because not only did they love that I was American and could help, their kids, with holidays and American customs and stuff like that, I got to learn things too. And they were also drinkers. They actually threw me my 21st birthday. They threw me a kegger, which was pretty impressive back then. And I think that, one of the things, that's where some of the drinking started, honestly, the partying and the experimentation with drugs. It was readily available out there, cocaine, obviously drinking. Going to the clubs was a getaway. I was working 12 hours a day, sometimes 6 days a week as a nanny. So that was kind of my thing. I went out there not knowing anyone. I didn't even know the family, what they look like when I met them in the airport. Nowadays, I don't even know if we do that. That's like scary. Human trafficking comes to mind. But I did it. I was bold and I was brave, and I wanted to fit in, and I wanted to meet other people. So going to the clubs and drinking. And, back then it was like you could drink, from like 7 to 10. It was like quarter drinks, and I'm drinking Long Island iced teas. And then I just started noticing sort of a pattern. And I noticed that, I'd drink, and then sometimes I'd go to the bathroom and I'd throw up because my stomach was so full, to come back out and drink again and party again. And I'm like, I'm ready, let's do this, and it's like, back then you're young and you're like, this is just what we do, and then you start getting older and you realize, no, that's not what you do. But it continued, and the experimentation with drugs continued, nothing hardcore. And then, honestly, I sort of just started running out of jobs. The nanny gig, I did that for 5 years with the Scottish family. I decided to move on. I worked for Macy's in Stamford, Connecticut as a freelance, makeup artist. I actually did work for Elizabeth Arden, and that they kind of gave me my start. I just a self-taught makeup artist. I have always enjoyed it. You can see the hair. I've always been creative in some way. And I had many opportunities doing something really awesome with that. But again, my partying ways and my little wild young ways just kept me from doing it. And I ran out of money. It was expensive to live out east. Even 20-some years ago, my rent was $1,200. That doesn't include utilities. 1 bedroom, had a roommate. Oh my gosh. So 2002, I ran out of money. And, you can imagine also kind of feeling sort of like, failure. I'm coming back. I lived with my mom and my brother for a short time. Found a job in the mall, which was at one time called City Looks. It's now Salon Couture. And I really enjoyed that job. And I ended up meeting my ex-husband. I ended up meeting him when I was working there in Winona. And I met him at a bar, which probably should have said a lot. I often joke. And then from there, it's just like we ended up getting married. We had a short courtship. And not knowing that there were addiction issues then. not knowing it. It was not made clear to me. It was hidden very well. And my first inkling was when I had my son, Spencer. I was prescribed hydrocodone. And I was never one for taking pills. I still am not. But my ex liked it. And I remember, I was in a lot of pain from having, giving birth. And I remember he took the whole bottle, pretty much. I might got one or two out of it. And this is just kind of a pattern. This is what I dealt with. His addiction got worse. He had addictions to OxyContin, oxycodone. He had a very terrible arm injury in the middle of our marriage, which created more addiction issues. He had 8 plastic surgeries, this and that. So you think of morphine, everything that you can get, he had it. I witnessed this. I watched this happen. And this is me not necessarily having addictions. I've always had a liking, ironically, to marijuana. I had mentioned, before in my childhood, I dealt with the embarrassment of that to ironically find that out of all the prescribed pills for depression and anxiety, marijuana has been the thing that's been the most calming and effective. So that's just interesting for me that that's worked out. And then moving forward, the addiction with my ex got so terrible to the point of if you can imagine, when you take OxyContin or oxycodone and they change the formula and then you're putting it in the microwave so you can just snort it. And then it, it just kept escalating. It was really, he was feeding his addictions. If he couldn't have something, he was finding else. And I witnessed this. And then I started slowly dabbling with him with methamphetamine. It was never really my go-to, honestly. I never was huge on stimulants because I'm an overthinker as it is, and it just sort of made me a little bit paranoid and the anxiety would rise. But I would. Methamphetamine has some crazy side effects, as we all know. At the time when I first started experimenting with it, there was some sexual aspects that made it pleasurable, and that's probably why, I did. I don't know. I know being married for, over 9-10 years, sometimes you kind of lose things, and sometimes you look for alternative ways to spice things up or to make things good. And I know that for me, that's what that was. It wasn't necessarily for the high per se. And then, things just got terrible. And during this whole time, I wasn't happy. The kids weren't happy. They saw this. The kids were getting older. And I had already, probably about 2.5 years ago, I'd already thought about ending the marriage because, unfortunately, I wasn't happy and I felt I was doing him a disservice, by not being able to put 100% into the relationship. But I also knew his sides, his ugly sides. He was vindictive and possessive and controlling and mean. And if I were to leave him, everything would be taken away from me. The car, money, everything. So I had to be super strategic about it. So for probably about 6 months, I planned to leave him because I knew the outcome. I saw the future. And I was right. Even all my planning that I did still didn't escape from the domestic violence that occurred towards the end. When he found out what I had done, which was basically kept him from being able to stay in the home, I was prepared. It still didn't keep me from him grabbing my throat and throwing me against the wall and strangling me. While my mom was on the porch looking in shock. That was the first experience I had with watching somebody stare and not be able to do anything. They felt they were frozen. And my children were there. So that was really hard. And honestly, my son saved my life, I would say, because I don't know what would have occurred after that. Because my son came out of the kitchen with a steak knife and he held it towards my ex and said, "Leave my mother alone, let her go now." And interesting enough, so what I did was I ran from house to house. Of course, nobody was home. I must have ran to 5 or 6 homes to knock on a door for them to call the police because I was sure he was chasing me, in which I did find out that he was looking for me, but I managed to find someone who helped me, called the police, restraining orders, no contact orders. It was a very ugly year of trying to get over that. And with that, here I am, a single parent, and I'm dealing with financial issues, which I knew I was going to. I knew I was starting out anew and fresh, but that was okay. And then I ended up befriending some people that didn't have my best interest in mind, and they allowed me to escape for a weekend. And this happened for months, and I would go away, and they had this addiction to methamphetamine, and they had this addiction in ways that I was unfamiliar with, smoking it. And I got wrapped up in it. And for some weird reason in my mind, I felt that it was okay because I was functioning. And I was still able to go to work. I was still able to raise my kids, get them up for school and everything. But I soon found out that I couldn't. And basically what happened is that I hit a wall, something that I thought never would happen to me, psychosis. From doing crystal meth, I literally was in the psychological hell. It just sort of came on where I guess the best, sometimes when you go through something like that, the feelings are so much more intense that it's hard to put them to words. But the best way I can say it is that I had to go spend the weekend at my mom's because I was sort of losing it. And I was thinking that I was predicting things, whether, as silly as it sounds, I'm watching the news and I'm watching certain political figures and I'm, sort of saying this, they're not good or they're not bad, or this, and predicting earthquakes. And I'm reading the back of movie covers and I'm like, how is this relating to my life? And I'm not allowing my mom to answer the phone to my brother to see what the hell's going on because I'm losing it. And I must have sent like 10 texts to 10 other people just to let them know that, something bad is happening. And basically, the best way I can say it is that I went down a rabbit hole, and I realized that when I was going through all this, because I really thought at one point I was dead and I was in limbo, and what I was dealing with was karma from past events. I had 2 attempted suicides when I was younger, and so in a way it was just like I was in my own hell, and I knew that I had 2 choices. So when you ask me who was my hero, or who's the one that helped me, who got me out of it, I got myself out of it, because weirdly, being in the psychological moment, I realized that I had 2 choices. I could live or I could die. I had already attempted to take my life twice before. I was realistic, weirdly, in this moment, knowing that I could do it again. Mm-hmm. And I knew I would, and even at that time, I was feeling quite empathetic and knew that I would never harm my family or my children, so it would be me. And so I dug my way out and I clawed my way out, and it still was hard. Like, you think that that's the hardest part, and it's not. It's like once you get out and then you admit it and then you start talking about it and you start telling your story. And I was so embarrassed. Honestly, that's why I probably didn't quit sooner. Weirdly, it's like I was so stressed out, and I'm trying to be this wonder super mom and like do it all, and I couldn't. And you have a go-to, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever it may be, you have a go-to. It feels safe. It makes you weirdly feel like you're going to be okay. And one thing I learned about meth is you're never okay. One thing I will say is you can handle it for a little bit, but it will always break you down. And from that, I just found hope and faith, and I started laughing again. I started feeling good again. I found memes. A lot of my friends know me for posting a lot on Facebook. I decided to take a holistic approach to treating myself, which is really going to be probably controversial. I love that we have treatment centers. I love that we have resources for people to go and help themselves. I have had a lot of family members that have been through that system, and I've seen it not work very well for them. And I'm not saying, it's to each his own, but I decided to just do some super inner work and try to heal the trauma and what really has been eating me and set boundaries. So I've eliminated a lot of people from my life. which is always the hardest thing to do, because actually the people that you need to eliminate from your life are the ones that you never think you would. Family, your closest friends. And I haven't eliminated family, but I definitely have distance, because I realize my triggers, I realize what gives me anxiety, and I've definitely incorporated a lot more self-love. With all this, I have body issues. I've tried to shed a lot of my ego. That's something I'm working on. A lot of us deal with so much crap and bullshit every single day. And every day I wake up and I thank the universe. Every day. Because I realize that I've been very fortunate and I got 3 chances at life. I was born, and the odds of me being born, if you ever look at it, your mom and dad meeting, are pretty astronomical, especially one being from Kansas and one North Carolina. I was spared my first suicide attempt, and then I had the second suicide attempt, and so how do you not come out of that and just realize that there's a bigger purpose? And so moving forward, I've super had to swallow my pride and basically, go out of my way to share. I love writing. I seem to do my best at writing, just flows out of me. And what I have found by doing this, and not only sharing memes, kind of sucking my friends and everybody in with humor and then inspiring them and just being like, oh, wow. And then I tell them my story. They're just sort of like, holy shit. All I have is my story. That's all I have, and it's the truth. And I hold strong to that, and I hold that sacred, because it is what I have, and it's what makes me me. And I do appreciate that more and more every day, because not only did I realize I'm helping more people than I realized, because selfishly a lot of it was for me. I was trying to heal myself. I was just trying to feel better. I was really doing it for my children. They're the motivator. Again, who got me out of this? I got me out of this, but I got to give credit to a lot of supportive roles. My children, my significant other, who called me out on all this and just said, what is going on? My brother. I've been very blessed to have some amazing friends in my corner, including you, Sherry. And I think the best, therapy you can get, honestly, in my opinion, is not only healing yourself along the way, but surrounding yourself with really, really good people that have the best interest for you, that love you, that will tell you the truth, whether it's good or bad. And keep it small. Keep your circle small. Sometimes we think that we got to have this big old circle, and that just causes more problems and more issues. I have anxiety, and I deal with it every day. And I can be a social butterfly, but I can be quite the introvert too. So I've really had to learn. And pick my battles every day. What am I going to do? And I've also had to accept the fact that some days I don't get out of bed sometimes. Maybe I might, eventually I get out of bed, but I had to really tell myself that's okay. Because society has put so much pressure on us, to do this, don't do that. So then when we have one of those days, we feel even worse. So moving forward, I hope to continue doing what I'm doing. I just hope to do it on a larger scale. I'm going to continue to share my story for whomever wants to hear it. I want to incorporate fun and laughter and humor in it, because I feel that is so much more healing than medicine. I mean, that is medicine. God knows that when I have a good day with friends, I can't even tell you the high I get. And also the high I get, which is so much better than the other high, by the way, is when you've made somebody feel good about themselves, or you were relatable.
Absolutely.
Relatable's huge for me. I didn't even realize, honestly, I'm not so unique, I don't think. There's other people that have the same story, just in different ways. But it does feel good that we have found each other. And I found that Facebook has done that for me. That's my platform. I'm happy with it. Others have tried to get me to go to Instagram or Snapchat or this or that, TikTok. It's just not me. I feel like I have found my soul tribe through Facebook. And so moving forward, I hope to do some writing. I always have said this since I was a little girl. I would not shy away from trying to write a screenplay. I love movies, always have. So I just hope to continue and in a positive way and just heal myself along the way. Every day I'm learning. Every day I wake up and I just figure if I'm doing a little bit better than the day before, then I'm evolving.
Yep. Well, and I know too for a fact that I know that your memes do create a lot of laughter. I get a kick out of them as well.
A little dark humor.
Yeah, and and it's nice, and I know that you have goals moving forward, especially with the video vlog that you're getting ready to get going here.
Which is super scary. Sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, by the way, with sharing that, it's not an easy process. There's pressure.
No,
You've put pressure on me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. And here I am. And I think it's kind of interesting for those moving forward and to the audience that I have stage fright. So the fact that I'm sitting here with you doing this is a very much courage over comfort. And I'm proud of myself, and I'll probably pat myself on the back after this and give you a huge hug. But, it's interesting. We overthink so much. And half the time, the things that we thought about never come to fruition, especially the negative. You definitely... when you think so hard about something, manifestations occur, good and bad. So, again, every day I just try to do positive thinking. And even if I feel like my day is going to be very blah, I find a way to just make it a little bit better.
Well, I am very honored that you agreed to come here today. I know it took a lot to talk about that because I know that you have not talked about it.
Correct.
A lot of people do not know that side of Harmony.
Yeah.
And so I thank you for your being courageous and bringing that forward. Some other woman's going to see that and that there's hope that I can get out of the situation and I don't have to live a life where I'm getting beat.
Correct.
And
yeah.
I don't have to have my children witness that. So I really appreciate you being here today and sharing that experience and strength and where you're getting your hope from.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Great to have you.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast of Addiction Abuse Recovery, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm sure you did, as I did. I want you to know that if you want to follow along, just go ahead and hit subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Apple Podcast. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Just search out Matt Logan Speaks. We have all kinds of great content for you. Hit the notifications button so that when something new comes up, you're the first to know. Have a great day.